All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Jenna Wood, and I am one of the dietitians here with the Giant Company, so Giant and Martin's supermarkets. So today, if you are new to our classes, welcome, especially if you're joining us after attending our well-being workshop, welcome. If you are returning, of course, welcome back. For our produce spotlight, we do just that. We take a produce item and we give it a little spotlight. Today, so somebody said, it is pumpkin season. 100%, it is fall now, although it's still 80 degrees here many days. It is fall. So we are going to talk about pumpkin. And make sure you tune in all month long. We are going to be kind of flip-flopping, doing pumpkin and apple all month because to us, those are the fall produce items. And we'll take some spins on it. So let us dive in. Oh, this was a picture from our website that they just happened to have featured, which I thought was so pretty since that is our topic. All right, so let's talk about pumpkin a little bit, right? Of course, as many of you probably know, it is a type of winter squash in the gourd family. And winter meaning like it's not a zucchini, it's not a yellow squash. They are a little bit different. They typically have a harder skin and they're a little starchier. Pumpkin, you can find it typically fresh, frozen, and canned. Typically throughout the year, you're gonna find it canned, but we do sell those pie pumpkins that you are able to purchase and make your own. Frozen, here or there, sometimes you'll find it. And most canned pumpkin is a special variety of pumpkin. So this is not going to be your classic jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. You're not going to necessarily want to bake that to make pumpkin pie. They're typically a Dickinson pumpkin and pie pumpkins. And I know Shane has done a lot of classes in the past with this in mind. In terms of nutrition, so as you can probably, if you've attended our classes in the past, one of the things you'll normally consider when it comes to pumpkins and other types of squashes is they're often rich in something called beta carotene, which is a precursor to vitamin A. So our body converts it into a form of vitamin A, which can be helpful for eye health, immunity, skin, lots of different things our bodies are using this beta carotene provitamin A for. And this is coming from that hyper orangey yellow pigment. And there's over 200% of your daily value, so how much you need per day, in a half a cup canned. So a really great amount. You probably won't overdo it if you're eating a bunch of pumpkin things throughout the day. We can get vitamin A in animal foods, and that tends to be where most people overdo it. However, there have been cases of people eating a ton of vitamin A from typically carrots, and it can kind of change the pigment of your skin. So, like anything else, moderation. You might not want to eat several cans of pumpkin a day. It also probably wouldn't be great on your stomach because canned pumpkin and pumpkin in general is high in fiber, or it's a good source of fiber. And you might see, like I've had this happen before where, maybe your dog is sick or maybe you have a sick stomach and you've been recommended to maybe mix in some pumpkin into their food. Of course, listen to your vet if that is the recommendation, but it can be helpful for certain stomachs, partly because of that fiber. Nutrients in every bite. So it has potassium, it has vitamin C, and various antioxidants. You'll even see here it has a little bit of iron as well. So a really kind of fun, nutritious food that just makes me think of this time of year. And if you're going to use it in a baked good like we are today, it can help lower the calories and fat of whatever baking item you're doing. Of course, I would follow a recipe that either has that pumpkin already in it or go slow if you're trying to incorporate more pumpkin into your baked goods. It's not always a one-to-one swap. I have seen recipes though, you use a whole can, or not a whole can, a whole box of brownie mix, and you mix a can of pumpkin puree, which we'll show. And that's it. And it works. I've also seen that with black beans, but so there are some recipes and tricks out there that you can try. More health benefits. So again, pumpkin is soft. It is fairly bland. You can taste it, but it is on the bland side, and it can be really easy to digest, which can be nice for people who are recovering from illness this time of year, or if you have a sensitive stomach. So, the brat diet you might have heard of, which can have a lot of bland foods like toast and rice and applesauce and bananas. pumpkin really can also typically fit into a style of diet like that because it's low in fat, it's not spicy, and it has a little bit of fiber, which sometimes people need to avoid when they're not feeling well, but it often fits into some of these diets. It supports that gut health, which we mentioned. It's a good source of potassium, which can help balance that sodium that we consume for a healthy blood pressure. And then that beta carotene, but also vitamin C and some other antioxidants found in pumpkin can have various antioxidant properties like reducing oxidative stress and inflammation. Of course, we're turning it into a sweet treat today, but certainly the pumpkin can have some health benefits. And when you're shopping in our Giant or Martin stores, there are several ways to pick up pumpkin, whether it be just the 100%, pumpkin, whether it's our Giant brand or the Nature's Promise organic, whichever you're looking for. Or we do often sell those pie pumpkins in our produce department, looking to make sure you're buying the correct one to bake if that's what you want to try. How are we going to use pumpkin though? So I was just talking to Zach, our well-being coordinator, before we hopped on. I personally don't like pumpkin. There are some ways I've tried it that I don't totally dislike it, but it is not up there in my favorite foods. However, there are some recipes, maybe you'll like it savory versus sweet. So there's a lot of different ways to try it. But first, when you are shopping for pumpkin, especially to make a recipe like today, or if you're going to add it to soup or something, you want to make sure you're looking for 100% pure pumpkin and not a pumpkin pie mix. And most often, you'll find this canned pumpkin. During this time of year, there will often be special displays and things like that, so you don't forget it. However, most of the year, you're going to find it in the baking or kitchen aisle, depending on your store. Mine's often on the bottom shelf, kind of near trying to think where it is. Sometimes near the Jello mixes. It really just kind of depends on your store, but it will be in that aisle most of the year. And there are ones that say pumpkin pie mix, but that's going to have some sugar and some spices and other things added, which maybe you don't want. So make sure you're always looking out. And when we start our recipe, I'll show you the can so you can see what to look for. In terms of storage, you can. I've never personally tried it because again, I don't use pumpkin all the time. So this is an experiment for me. But you can freeze leftover pumpkin in ice cube trays and then pop them into things like smoothies, into your oatmeal, into various sauces. I have seen various like creamy pasta dishes that use a little canned pumpkin in their sauces. And again, so many different ways beyond the pumpkin pie. So whether this is one I have tried, I'm pretty sure, stirring it into your oatmeal or overnight oats. Again, a little bit, doesn't have to be anything crazy. Mixing it into chilies, into curries, pasta sauces, blending it into those smoothies. So you can make one with banana, cinnamon, some Greek yogurt. That would be a great combination. Baking it into muffins like we are today, energy bites, pancakes. Again, so many different sweet recipes. And then you can, I have had this before too, I'm pretty sure, swirling it into hummus. So a plain hummus, not super garlicky, swirling in some just canned pumpkin puree, give it a nice fall twist, or Greek yogurt to make it kind of savory, or you can make a sweet dip out of that as well. Maybe add a little maple syrup, a little cinnamon if you want it sweet for maybe dipping graham crackers or apples or something like that. So we do have tons of pumpkin recipe inspiration on savory. I just threw three in here to kind of showcase again the versatility of the pumpkin. So pumpkin lentil stew. This is one I would try too. I love lentils, so I'd give this one a try. The one pot pumpkin pasta. That was a lot to say. One pot pumpkin pasta. So again, that creaminess of pumpkin can kind of help provide a creaminess, maybe with less dairy. And then the pumpkin spice smoothie. So these are three great pumpkin recipes you'll find on our website. Today's recipe we are making, and I did try one already, and I shockingly liked it. So hopefully you will as well. But we are making chia seed and pumpkin muffins with pecans. A mouthful. There's a lot of it. There's not a ton of ingredients, but we'll talk through why each of those ingredients are there. So I did want to show all of the ingredients on one slide because I did a little math for you. So if you want to make this recipe and you don't want to have to figure out the ratios, I did that for you. So you're going to use a whole can of pumpkin, but only some of it is in the muffins and some of it is in the icing that we'll make. So I show you how much give or take will be in each of those. Basically, you'll do a cup for the muffins, and then whatever's left is going to go into the icing. The maple syrup, about a quarter cup is going into the muffins. 4 teaspoons, give or take how sweet you want that icing to be, will be in the frosting. And then anything that doesn't have parentheses, so we're using almond flour or meal, which I'll talk about, 3 eggs, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. You definitely want good baking powder. Make sure it's not deactivated in any way because this is a dense muffin. We want it to rise. So you're going to want some baking powder there. 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, one in the muffins, one in the icing. Of course, these are your muffins if you want more or less. Half a teaspoon of ground ginger in the muffins, quarter teaspoon of salt in the muffins, chia seeds, 2 tablespoons, split in half between the muffins and sprinkled on top, which again, totally up to you. And then half a cup of chopped pecans inside. However, I think some pecans on top would be very cute too. And then for the icing, we're going to have about 6 ounces of softened cream cheese, which I'll show you. This is the instructions. I'm going to talk through it, but as always, you will get these slides. But I'm going to stop sharing quickly, and then I'm going to turn on my other camera if I can reach it. There we go. Okay, it's up very high. Alrighty, we're going to add a spotlight here. Perfect. So hopefully you can see. I might drop it down just a tad. Okay, so for our muffins, we're going to mix everything into one bowl, which I love. So I did already uh, parse out our almond flour. So I'm going to pull up our recipe just so I don't forget anything. So into our mixing bowl here, I have 2 cups of almond flour. Now the traditional recipe on our Savory website says 2 cups of almond meal. So I did a deep dive into, does it have to be almond meal? Can it be almond flour? And the answer is yes. 1, because I've made the recipe, and 2, I think it was on Bob's Red Mill's website, who I trust for baking needs. They said they are interchangeable. The texture of almond meal is a little grittier, actually, and it typically has the skin of the almonds. So that can provide a little bit more fiber. But honestly, I think almond flour is the way I would go for this. And I used our Nature's Promise almond flour. You can find this typically in the natural organic section. I did not see it in my regular baking aisle, so make sure you check because our store brand's definitely going to be the best price for this. And it's a nice big size, so you'll be able to use it in other places. Like I've made pancakes with almond flour, and they're so delicious. So this is our Nature's Promise almond flour. Absolutely delicious. And it has a recipe for almond flour brownies on the back, which sound very good. So this is the almond flour I am using, 2 cups right in here. Then we are going to do, I believe it is a quarter cup of maple syrup, which I already pre-measured right into there. You possibly could do less. I didn't think they were super, super sweet, so quarter cup is a nice amount. Then we are going to add in 3 eggs, which I just kind of already cracked, as you can see. I like to kind of crack them into a bowl as opposed to into all of the ingredients, just in case, you get a bad egg. Maybe you get 2 yolks for some reason. Like I just like to crack it into a separate vessel to just check. Or maybe you get a shell in there and you struggle to get the shell out. I just crack it in a separate tiny bowl, so you're not washing a ton of stuff. Then we're going to do, okay, so I already pre-measured all of this. Oh, I will show you the maple syrup as well. I love this one. I don't know if you've ever tried it. It is the cinnamon and vanilla infused maple syrup. This is our brand, so the Taste of Inspirations. I really love this one. And I think especially for this recipe, cinnamon and a little vanilla, because this actually doesn't have any vanilla extract, which is kind of crazy. You probably could add it. These are your muffins. I probably would. So they're fine without it, but I'm adding a little vanilla with the maple syrup. Now for some of our dry ingredients and our spices, we're doing a teaspoon of that cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ginger. I think it's a quarter teaspoon of salt, like I mentioned, and then those 2 teaspoons of baking powder. All in here, right in there. Oh, I can smell the cinnamon. I love cinnamon. So good. And I will show you. So just our baking powder, our double acting baking powder. So I don't bake all that much anymore. I used to in high school and college. I baked all the time. I don't bake very much anymore. So I always check my baking powder. I put just a touch in my hand and I pour just a little water from the sink onto the baking powder to make sure it is still activated. It'll bubble right away. If it doesn't bubble right away, you need new baking powder because it's not going to have that action you want to help make the muffins rise. So always check your baking powder because you don't want your, muffins to not do what they're supposed to. They'll be like hockey pucks. So baking powder right in there. The cinnamon, as I mentioned, I love our Nature's Promise cinnamon. And then I'm not a big ginger fan, so it only calls for half a teaspoon. Like I like ginger in like sushi and things, but this is our ground ginger. Half a teaspoon, I think, is a perfect amount right in there. We have that. And then I think I forgot our pumpkin, so we're doing a cup of our pumpkin right here. I already measured that out too. Hopefully I will get out. I have a spoon. Okay. Right in there. Okay. I'm going to keep that spoon handy. This is our pumpkin. So again, it says 100% pumpkin right on there. And the ingredient list will just say pumpkin. That's what you're looking for. So put that aside. And then a tablespoon of our chia seeds. So these are just our Nature's Promise chia seeds. A lot of these ingredients will be in the natural organic section. So if you're not familiar with shopping in that section, I encourage you to check it out every once in a while. There are some really cool things in there that aren't just necessarily like organic. All right, so a tablespoon is going to go right into the batter. Ooh, perfect. So that's going to help thicken. Just add a little fiber too. It's going to have some nice fiber. I think that is everything. We're going to mix and then we're going to add the pecans. Although I will say I made a batch yesterday and I mixed the pecans in from the start and it was totally fine. So just give it a stir. It does smell quite good. Just mix until, I don't think, unlike a regular like wheat flour, you don't want to overmix, but I don't think you're at as big of a risk of overmixing as you would with a wheat flour. So just mix until you don't see any more of that almond flour on the sides of your bowl. The egg is all mixed in, which I think we're looking pretty good. Yep. Okay. Then we're going to add in a half a cup of chopped pecans. So we have just our chopped pecans here, half a cup. There's more than enough in the bag, so I might sprinkle some on top. So half a cup right in there. I also, for the batch I made yesterday, I used the pecan chips. They're like a little tinier. I liked them in there too. They would also be nice to sprinkle on top. So whatever size pecans you have. If you have like whole pecans, I would crush them a little. But that is it for our batter. So then what we're going to do, the recipe says it only makes 10. Mine made 12 muffins, so I guess it just depends on how full you fill them. But I liked 12. So what I did, I just have like a disposable one, which I actually do wash and reuse, but I have this muffin tray here. You certainly can use the cupcake like paper liners. However, I sprayed it with just a little cooking spray and they pop right out. And I much prefer that. Sometimes I feel like you lose a little bit of the muffin to the wrapper and I don't want that. So I just gave them a little spray. I'm going to take a disher, which I actually got this scoop with like our ice cream ingredients in our freezer section, but it's also in our kitchen aisle. So then you kind of just, plop it in there. Now I will say, you will see this when I show you the muffins I made yesterday. They don't really spread or move. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to show you. Now, if I leave it like this, they actually look kind of cute. They look like little like domes. They will stay like this and not move. So if you want them to be nice and perfectly flat, you're going to want to kind of push them down into the pan. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. And with the magic of TV time, we have a sheet already baked. So you can kind of see here, they pop right out. This is the one I sprayed. I did do ones in muffin liners and they're fine too, but they pop right out. They're really nice. They are dense, but not too dense, like the hockey puck I mentioned. But you can kind of see I didn't push any of it down, and it kind of just it's the shape it was when I put it in that little pan. So if you want them to be much more nice and rounded or flat, you're going to want to do that when they're in the pan. But I'm going to set this aside and we are going to make our icing or frosting, whatever you want to call it. Certainly the frosting is optional. I will say I think Shayna has made these in the past for something and she didn't make the icing at all. So to me, this is a muffin. Adding an icing to it makes it a little bit more like a cupcake and that is fine. So the icing is totally optional, but we're going to give it a try. So I do have a separate bowl here. And we are going to do 6 ounces of cream cheese. I am doing our Giant brand Neufchâtel, which is akin to like a reduced fat cream cheese. Um, so it has a third less fat than regular cream cheese. Because we want better for you options, and I think it tastes exactly the same. And that's what we use when we make cheese, what's it called? Cheesecake and all that. All right, so you want 6 ounces, which is going to be what I love about these is it shows you the kind of markings on here. So it has 2 ounces, 4 ounces, 6 ounces. I'm sure if you want to use the whole thing, you can just add a little bit more maple syrup. I would honestly make this icing to taste anyway, but we're going to follow the directions. And I'm going to open this up. There we go. I did soften it, so it's been sitting on my counter since I was getting ready for class, but I honestly put a bowl of lukewarm water and I sat this in there, still in the unopened wrapped metal that it's in, the foil. So put that in there to just soften it a little bit more. You certainly could also use, we have that like whipped, bagel-like cream cheese, which I think that comes in a container that's 8 ounces as well. So that would work, and that's already nice and fluffy. So I'm going to do 6 ounces, give or take. It is very soft. But you can save that other 2 ounces. Maybe you have a bagel tomorrow morning. Okay. Or again, just use the whole thing, tweak it to taste. But we have the 6 ounces right in there. Move my stuff out of the way. So then we're going to add the remaining pumpkin, which we're going to see how much it ends up being. It should be about 3/4 of a cup if I did math correctly, which math is not my favorite subject, but hopefully I did my math correctly. Yeah, I think I did. All right. So what I love about this is you're using the whole can between the muffins and the icing. But again, let's say you're only making the muffins and not making the icing. Certainly you could use that leftover pumpkin in a smoothie, in your oatmeal, lots of different ways. You can make a latte. For those of you who joined me or saw our Fox 29 segment, I made a pumpkin cold foam using some canned pumpkin. So you could do that too. All right. So that was about 3/4 of a cup. Nice. All right. So that goes in with the cream cheese. Then we're going to add about 4-ish teaspoons of maple syrup. Again, doing this to taste how sweet you want it to be. So here's the bowl. 4, so that's about 1 tablespoon and a teaspoon. Perfect. I love maple. I'm not a big pumpkin fan, so we're going to see if the maple fixes it for me. Okay. Then we are going to do a teaspoon of cinnamon, which I also love. Teaspoon right in there. It does smell quite nice in here. So then we're going to give this a mix. Hopefully, the cream cheese is soft, but we're going to mix it very, very, very gently as to not, granted, I'm wearing the color I am on purpose, just in case I get any pumpkin on me. This does look quite nice. We're just gonna keep mixing. Yeah, it does smell good. If only you could smell. Okay, so it is coming together. Just gonna keep mixing. Now, the recipe says to use a piping bag, which certainly if you have and you want to be fancy, you can use a piping bag. You can also use, if you just have like a plastic, like sandwich bag, you can use that as a piping bag as well. I'm not trying to be fancy. And I don't want you to have to buy a bunch of crazy things to make super pretty cupcakes, which these are muffins anyway. So what I'm going to do, that mixed really well. Okay. So I'm going to do, so we're going to take them and I'm just going to spread it on with a knife. Again, you do whatever you want to do. Where's my knife? Moved it over here. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to take them. Now these have cooled. I made them yesterday. But if you did, you're baking them immediately and you want to ice them, you do want them to cool down a little bit. Otherwise, that cream cheese frosting is just gonna slide right off and be not so nice. So let them cool. I'm gonna take a little bit of our icing, frosting, I keep using the same words, and I'm just gonna spread it around. And honestly, this is nice because this will kind of cover up some of the fact that I didn't spread the batter in very nicely. It's going to kind of cover up all of that craziness. Ooh, this looks very nice. I will try one because I think foods and nutrition, it's all about trying foods, even ones you think you don't like. So I will try one. I haven't tried it with the icing yet. I did try one without. So let's top this one. And I love reusing the pumpkin again in 2 different ways. Okay, so just spread it. Doesn't have to be perfect. And honestly, you could make this as like a loaf. You can make it in a bunch of different ways. So then, oof, okay, my fingers are getting dirty. So what we're gonna do is just sprinkle a little bit of those chia seeds right on top. Not a ton, because you really don't want to eat chia seeds dry. They can also get stuck in your teeth, but I'm just gonna sprinkle just a little. They are cute. Okay, perfect. And then, as I mentioned, I do have some pecans left, so I'm gonna put a couple pecans right on top too. Which I think if you're bringing this somewhere, it's always nice to kind of have the nuts visible. So if somebody has an allergy, you can at least see it there too. And this is a dairy-free recipe. That's pretty cool. Well, dairy-free for the muffin. So if you didn't want to do the icing, certainly you could make it completely dairy-free. All righty. So those are our muffins. So certainly, again, you can top it with the cream cheese frosting and then some chia seeds or chia and the pecans as well. I'm going to show it at this one too. Or just keep them completely icing free, and that's totally fine as well. They do smell very nice. I will give it a try. But I want to thank you so much for joining me today to learn all about pumpkin. Do you want to tell you what is coming up in our classes the remainder of the week? Let me just see here. Okay. Oh, our takeaways for today. Pumpkin, super nutrient rich. It has fiber, it has vitamin A, tons of different things. It has a little iron and potassium. Canned pumpkin, as you can see today, is quite versatile and a convenient option if you don't want to bake it yourself. And, let's say you make the muffins, but you want some other ways, you can try it in oatmeal, smoothies, other baked goods, and of course, plenty of savory dishes as well in the fall or year round. Make sure you tune back in. So this Wednesday, tomorrow, we have our table talk. We're talking about teal pumpkin and food allergies. So Joni will be talking to Fair. And then Thursday, we have sweater weather, a fun, hopefully it'll be sweater weather at some point. So we'll do that on Thursday. So of course, you can register here. And I just want to say thank you and take care. And I will see you next time.